So I am starting this video a little bit later than I was planning to do is because I just finished editing my match vlog and right now it's currently rendering right now, so that by the time I finish doing this video it should be finished in terms of rendering, and then I'm gonna actually upload this video first and then the news of the week, which I'm gonna do after recording this video, and then I'll upload the match vlog. And anytime when I have to do a match vlog where the Quakes lost a game, it's always going to be tough, but I feel like this time when I do the editing for the match vlog, it was kind of in some way very emotional and very it just kind of makes me angry when I was editing this match vlog, because we all know what happened in this game between the Quakes versus Union, where there was definitely some controversial call, and that it's been more than 24 hours since this game has passed, and I'm still very angry about the decision that gone against us late in the game, where we probably should have had a penalty to give us a chance to equalize. And of course I will get to that when I talk about this game. But I also made a video right after game talking about addressing the situation with the fans decided to throw garbage onto the pitch right after the third VAR was looked at, and then they continued to throw stuff onto the pitch after the referee decided that there was not a penalty. And I talked about how that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and I also mentioned a little bit about referees, of course, are just kind of going against us for so many weeks, and that could be one of the biggest reason why we're not going to make the playoffs this season. And I also specifically say right at the end of the video that, if you guys are going to react in terms of this issue, it has to be respectful and appropriate, and that if there's a comment that I feel like is inappropriate and it's something that I really don't like, I am going to remove it. And it turns out there was definitely some comments that I saw in that video was completely inappropriate, and I basically, of course, removed it. And I'm not going to mention names of who exactly they commented in that video that I decided to remove. But if you're watching this video and, you basically comment that thing in my reaction kind of video in terms of the issue with the fans throwing things on the pitch, or the fact that the referee kind of are against us for the last couple of weeks, you know who you are, and I hope you will never do that again in terms of my channel, and that I really don't want to disable comments in my video. I mean, I've seen a lot of YouTubers, they of course disable comments in their video because they know that fans are being kind of toxic in terms of the comment section. And I know the YouTube comment section these days is definitely very cancerous, and that you are going to have some inappropriate comments. But I really felt like, for me, I'm kind of know that of course is an issue, but I'm not going to just say that I'm gonna take that issue and that I'm going to basically disable the comment section to prevent that, because I don't think that's gonna prevent that situation where the comment section in YouTube is very cancerous, and that it just basically doesn't give any fans a voice in terms of my video and my fans to kind of react to this video, which is definitely not right. So that's why I decided to open the comment section. But I hope that in future cases I don't have those kind of inappropriate comments that is going to be put in my video, and that if there is going to be those inappropriate comments that is put in my video, then I am definitely going to remove that. But that being said, I'm kind of got a little bit off track in terms of that, as we're now actually going to talk about the first game of this midweek action. Or actually, I'm not going to talk about the first game of this midweek action. I'm going to actually go backwards in terms of the midweek action, and I'm going to go from the last game of this midweek to the first game of this midweek in terms of this review video. And the first game that I'm going to be talking about, since we're talking about this situation about how there was controversy in the Union versus Quakes game, that is where I am going to begin. Where in this game, the Union, of course, won 2-1 against the San Jose Earthquakes, and there was free VAR incident in this game, and that I'm of course going to try to break it down, and I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible in terms of me looking at these VAR situation. But the first VAR situation happened in the 11th minute when VAR did not send off a Union defender for a potential denial goal score opportunity, and I forgot who exactly was that Union defender that would foul one of our attacker. But when I look at VAR in that instant, I think that it was the right call, and that I don't think it was clear and obvious that he basically fouled one of our attacker, and that one of our attacker had a great chance of scoring a goal. And at the end of the day, I think a yellow card was fair in that instant, and that I have no problem with the first VAR instant. Now, before I talk about the second VAR instant, we did score a goal 24 minutes later after the first VAR instant, where it was Jackson Yo scoring from Danny Houston and Eriksson to give us a 1-0 lead. And you know how Wando, he basically decided that he is going to be going to the Ultras, and he kind of announced it a couple of days before the match. At first, I didn't think that he was going to seriously do that. But on game day, he really meant it, and he was actually in the Ultra section, and hence, I think that is one of the reasons why the Ultras was really up for it, and probably that was the loudest I ever heard the Ultras singing throughout the game, because, Wando was leading the chant, and when this goal was scored, what he's going to do. He obviously is going to do something that all Ultras member would always do when the Quakes score a goal, which is they're going to take their shirts off. And he basically took his shirt off, and he was waving it with his hand. And I mean, if Wando is not proven to be a legend of the San Jose Earthquakes, and that if there is still some people that still don't believe that Wando is a legend to the Quakes and to MLS, I think this moment should signify it. And that there is no doubt this moment is something that I don't think we have ever happen in MLS before, where a suspended player would actually go into the stand and support the team from the stands. And that, what Wando did here is something very historical, and that there is no doubt that, as I said before, we got to build this man a statue when he retired. Like, there is no ifs or buts if we're going to build a statue of him outside of Via Stadium. And heck, maybe build 2 or 3 statues outside of him. I mean, you can literally build tons of statues outside of Via Stadium just to commemorate him, because he has done so much to this team, and he has so much great moment to this team. And that, I mean, what a legend he is to our team. And I'm just so blessed that he is forever one of us. But, at that point, we were up 1-0 in the game. Now, in the second half, this is when the second VAR incident happened. And this second VAR incident was a goal that basically ruled out for the Quakes. So the Quakes basically score a second goal, and certainly the fans was going wild, and I was definitely going wild. But then they of course had to go to VAR to make sure that if there wasn't like a potential offside in the development of the play, or also in the goal scoring phase. And it turns out they found out that one of our player was in an offside position, and it happened in the development play where Houston, I look at it a couple of times, and at first, I just didn't see how Houston was in an offside position. But then when I look back a little bit in terms of the development play, it looked like Houston was just maybe an inch or a foot offside. I mean, it was close, but I think it was definitely indefinite enough that I think that could have been overturned by VAR. And that, that was kind of frustrating that we could have been 2-0 up heading into the second half, and that this would have been a perfect start for us. And that you could also maybe say that it might be game, set, and match, considering the fact that, the Union giving up a second goal to start the second half when they feel like they could come back in the second half. When they concede this goal in the second half, they would feel completely deflated. The fact that now all their hopes of potentially coming back in the second half is all but done because they gave up this early goal. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and this game stayed at 1-0. And I knew that as long as this game stayed at 1-0, the Union was always going to find a way to get back into this game. I mean, this Union team is just too good to not put up a fight late in this game to able to get themselves back into it. And eventually they did get themselves back into it when Bedoya scores from Gaddis to give them the equalizer in the 70th minute. Then they completely turn this game on its head, and it's Shabilko who scores from Monteros to give them a 2-1 lead. And then that is where we lead to the most controversial moment of this game, and this is where it leads to fans basically decide to throw things onto the pitch, which is the penalty decision. And, you know, I look at this probably at least 20 times already ever since I got out of the stadium, and basically even look at it this morning, and I look at it 20 times. And, you know, you can call me a biased Quakes fan or just a guy that don't know soccer or whatsoever, but I don't know how in the world that is not a penalty. Like, Collins, when he basically brought down Rios in the box, he didn't even look at the ball. Like, I understand that there's some argument, the fact that it was a soft penalty because, you know, maybe Collins was trying to prevent Rios from getting that ball, and that you see that a couple of times. But the biggest flaws to that argument is that when you look on the replay, he didn't even play the ball or even look at the ball, and then in many ways it felt like he knew exactly what he was going to do, and he knew exactly that he has to bring down Rios in terms of that incident, and that clearly should have been a penalty. And I also heard that the main referee Toledo even said that he originally thought that it was a penalty, but then he had to consult with the VAR official, and that the VAR official overturned his decision and kind of talk him out in terms of the fact that it was not a penalty. But in my opinion, I think that is completely wrong. Like, I just don't see how that is not a penalty. I've seen before that when you have that kind of play that happened during this season, it was called a penalty. So why exactly it was not called in this penalty? And then, as I also said many times before this season, originally this call was a penalty, and in order for a call to be overturned, it has to be clear and obvious that the referee made the wrong decision. And when you look at that play, I don't see how in the world that is clear and obvious. And in many ways, it was more clear and obvious that that was actually a penalty than it was a clear and obvious mistake that Toledo, of course, points to the penalty spot in the first place. I mean, I'm still absolutely livid about that call. And I know, you know, that call doesn't mean that we automatically get the second goal because, you know, we, of course, still have to put away the penalty. But that is not only a game-changing play, but a season-defining play. If that was given a penalty, and if we would have got that second goal and get the equalizer, we would still be above the red line right now. We shouldn't be below the red line if we got a point out of this game because, as I mentioned later on, Portland drew their game against New England. So, you know, as I mentioned in that video that I did yesterday, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Quakes fans has mentioned, this is one of the evidence of why referee is clearly kind of putting an agenda that makes sure we're not going to make the playoffs, and that this is probably one of the few times where I have to say that, you know, referee definitely play a big part in terms of the reason why we lost this game. Now, despite that, I will also say this: referee didn't completely rob us in this game, and, you know, it's important to know that I didn't say referee completely rob us this game. I only said that they partially ruined this game for us. Because, you know, throughout this game, when you look at the shots in this game, the Quakes only had 10 shots compared to 9 that not New England, but Philly has. I wrote the wrong team there. But they only had 2 shots on goal compared to 5 that Philly has. 6 shots off target compared to 3 that Philly has. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Philly has. And possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession. And, you know, it's important to know that, you know, I didn't say that the referee completely robs us, and that I feel like part of the reason why we lost this game is because we didn't create enough chances, and that we were just toothless going forward on the attack, and that it was pretty clear that missing Espinoza and Wando in this game play a huge factor of why our attack just didn't get going. Like every time it seemed like we're going on the attack, we just look kind of out of ideas in terms of putting that final ball in to give us a good chance to score the goal. And that of course played a big reason of why we didn't win this game. And also this was another game of an example of the fact that we've seen in the past couple of games where the Quakes in certain moments they capitulate, and when they capitulate in those certain moments, that's when they of course are punished. But at the end of the day, all I'll say is for the Quakes is that while they're below the red line right now, and while it feels very demoralizing of the thing that has gone on after this game, they still have a chance of making the playoffs. And that if they can, of course, win the next game against Seattle, which there is no doubt that is a must-win game. Like, I've been saying throughout the season that it's a must-win game for the Quakes to play against their upcoming opponent at home. But this one is really a definition of must-win, because if we do not win that one, and if Portland does win their game, and maybe Dallas win their game, then we would be officially eliminated from the playoffs. And as for the Union, they keep their hopes alive in terms of getting the top spot in the Eastern Conference, although that hopes is kind of still a little bit of a distant. I mean, if they can win the next game and hope that NYCFC lost the next game, then they of course are going to be once again still alive in terms of getting that top spot. And that, don't forget, the Union play NYCFC on the final day of the season, and that we could really have a top 2 Eastern Conference battle, and that it could really be a game that could decide who's going to win the Eastern Conference and who's going to get the first round bye out of the Eastern Conference. But moving on in terms of the next match, so talk about controversial game. We had another one in this one between the Timbers and New England. And, as a Quakes fan, as much as I saw how much of a robbery that has happened and how much referee kind of gone against us in this game, I definitely feel for Timbers fans in this game too, because they, I think, also kind of got robbed by the referee and had referee decision that gone against them late in this game. Although the difference between this one and this game is that while this one happened right in the 82nd minute, where, if that decision gone against the Quakes, at least the Quakes still have time to potentially get an equalizer. This instant, Portland didn't even have a chance to get the winning goal when that decision went against them late in the game. Now, in the first half, there was no score between both of these teams, and I believe that's now 6 straight games that Portland has been shut out in the first half at home, which is just incredible. But at the same time, with the drought that they've been on in terms of goal scoring, it's definitely not a surprise, the fact that this game was at 0-0. Now, in the second half, they finally broke their goal drought, and they actually broke their goal drought pretty early in the second half when Abobasi scores from Villafania to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead to end, I think, around 324 minutes without a goal that they score at home. And the last time they, of course, score a goal, the last time I think they scored a goal was, I believe, was it the goal that Valeri scored early in the game against RSL, or was it the SKC one where Abovisi also scored the late goal to win it for the Timbers? Either one of those, it's been a while since Portland was able to get a goal. So they're up 1-0 at that point. And then in the 75th minute, Ibovisi was brought down by Brendan Bye, but no penalty was awarded. And the reason why I want to mention that, and I kind of want to also puts a underline in terms of what I wrote on the board here, is because this is going to be something that's gonna have a connection of what happened later in the game. Because later in the game, we also had an incident very similar to this, where a defender decided to tug the shirt off their attacker and ultimately brought them down in the box, and that, one of them was given a penalty and the other wasn't. Now, Ibobasi did get his goal later on, despite the fact that he got denied a penalty 4 minutes later, and then he scored in the 81st minute to give the Timbers a 2-0 lead, and he was assisted by Sebastian Blanco. And I also wrote goal of the week because, I don't know if Ibobasi actually meant this, but way that the ball was coming into the box, he was trying to head that ball away, but he kind of mistimed his header, and as he was kind of making the diving motion, somehow his back heel actually caught the ball, and he basically just used his back heel to flick that ball into the back of the net. And I don't know if he meant it or not, and if he does meant it, that is going to go down as one of the greatest goals we have seen so far this season. I mean, anytime when you basically dive early and trying to score a goal from your back heel while you're diving down onto the ground is incredibly hard to do. So, whether, of course, if he meant it or not, it was an incredible goal and kind of a very fluky goal in some way. But, the Timbers were up 2-0 at that point, and you would think, yep, the Timbers going to get all 3 points, and that New England is pretty much all dead and buried in this game, right? Not so fast, because in the 87th minute, Gustavo Bo scores from Bunbury and Pineda to set up a grandstand finish in this game. And then in the 97th minute, this is when the controversy began. And I'm actually going to say that this happened in the 96th minute because, when this incident happened, it was like 95 minutes and 32 seconds. And that one of the New England player was brought down in the box. And I think originally they didn't say it was a penalty, and then they go to VAR and basically overturned that. And I forgot who exactly was the ref's player that was brought down in the box. But either way, the reason why, going back to what I said about why I highlight the fact that Abovasi was brought down but no penalty was awarded, and why I highlight the incident in the 75th minute, is because this is literally the exact same thing that happened late in the game, where, it clearly looked like one of the defender basically took one of the New England attacker, and then that attacker basically went down into the box, and it was given a penalty. And obviously a lot of Timbers fans are angry about that, and I don't blame them. And they're angry about this penalty for a couple of reasons. One, it happened in the 96th minute when there was only 4 minutes of stoppage. So this penalty this play should have never happened if the referee would have just blown his whistle right at the 4-minute mark. But remember, just because there is 4 minutes of added time in that game doesn't mean the referee have to blow it, and that there's a reason why the PA announcer always announce after the 90th minute or at the 45th minute that there is a minimum of 45, or not 45, but 4 minutes of stoppage time. So the referee don't have to stop it at 4 minutes if they feel like there was some stoppage during stoppage time in this game. But the other reason why Timbers fans are angry about this is that they feel like that New England attacker clearly dives, and that he kind of made a meal out of that. And then the third reason obviously is going to be connected to what I said about the fact that that was the same kind of play that should have earned us a penalty when one of their defender basically took one of our attacker down into the box. And yeah, I mean, this is the thing, is that we are just seeing so many inconsistent calls in this league, and that I feel like one of the reason why a lot of people are questioning in terms of pro and also the referee isn't just because they have always made some bad calls throughout the season, but it just feels so inconsistent, and that it can happen anytime whatsoever. Like, you could have legitimately a play that looked clearly not a penalty given a penalty, and then you could also have a legitimate play that looked like a penalty but was not given a penalty, and you could also have some time where that exact play earlier in the game was not given a penalty, but then later in the game that exact kind of circumstances was given a penalty. Inconsistency has really just killed the referee reputation of this league, and there is no doubt that I am really nervous about heading into the playoffs, and where I have a feeling that there's going to be at least one team that is going to be very upset about the referee decision that gone against them in the playoffs. And unlike in the regular season where, the referee decision gone against us, and that I'm very upset about that, but at least there is going to be another game and that we can, of course, redeem ourselves. In the playoffs, there's no such thing as that. And since we are only at a single elimination playoff round this year, there's no such thing as we're going to redeem ourselves in the second leg or so whatsoever. It could really end a team season, and that is what I am just so concerned heading into the playoffs in terms of these referee decisions, and that I'm going to say it again, as I said last year, pros got to do something in terms of fixing these ref. Either hire some new ref to hope that you can, of course, fix these kind of inconsistent calls and these calls that have just repeatedly gone wrong throughout the season, or just train some of your one and hold some of these ref accountable in terms of some of the bad calls that they have made throughout this season. But yeah, with this draw, the Timbers, while they of course are above the red line because the Quakes lost in this game, they are going to be very disappointed, not only because of the referee decision that gone against them, but they should have got all 3 points. I mean, when you're up 2-0 with 3 minutes left in the game, 99% of the time you should be getting 3 points, and that in some way you could maybe even say that is a complete choke that Portland had in this game against New England, where they should have clearly had 3 points when they're up 2-0 in the 87-minute mark. But that being said, moving on into the next game. But either way, moving on into the next game is LAFC winning 3-1 against Houston. And with this win, LAFC is officially crowned as the 2019 Supporters Shield winner. And hence, that's why I'm wearing an LAFC jersey right now, because I'm commemorating them of winning the Supporters Shield this season. And I know, even though we knew that they were going to win the Supporters Shield a couple of months ago, when they basically just completely run away with the Western Conference and pretty much also run away with the Supporters Shield standings, I think the only surprise I would say is that it kind of took a little bit longer for them to basically lift that shield than what I thought that they were going to be doing. I mean, I thought they would have done it a couple of weeks ago, but because they went on this winless run that they got in the last 5 games, that's why they have to wait a little bit. But they didn't have to wait anymore, because they, of course, won 3-1 against the Dynamo. And that, in the first half, they got off to a good start in the 23rd minute when Vela was able to put away a penalty to give LAFC a 1-0 lead. I believe that's now 29 goals that Vela have scored so far this season, and I think he's now just 2 away in terms of tying Joseph Martinez's record, and just 3 away in terms of breaking the record. But Houston did respond 5 minutes later, and this was a bit of an unfortunate goal because, Miller, he probably could have done a better job in terms of when he tried to punch that ball away. He kind of whiffed it a little bit, and then it just gone to one of the Dynamo player, and then there was kind of like a little bit of a chaos in the box, and eventually the ball actually ends up into the back of the net. And I believe one of the LAFC defender was trying to clear the ball away, and then it basically just hits Miller and ricochet back into the back of the net. So that was definitely an unfortunate goal for LAFC to concede. But, in the second half, as this game continued to be at 1-1, I was kind of a little bit concerned the fact that, is this going to be like previous couple of games performance where LAFC just have not looked as good as they have been throughout the season, and that is this another game where they are going to not win a game and extend that winless run to 6 games, and that there's going to be a lot of question about their playoff chances, and that if they go on a cold run like this, how are they going to do in the playoffs? But that doubt, of course, was all eliminated in the 70th minute when Rossi basically gave LAFC the lead back in this game. And then 12 minutes later, Atuesta basically puts the game away with a wonderful free kick to make it 3-1 in this game. And like I said, LAFC have won 2019 Supporters Shields, and certainly congratulations to them winning the Shield this season. And in terms of the shots in this game, 20 shots compared to 10 that Houston has, 9 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Dynamo has, 8 shots off target compared to 2 that Houston has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that Houston has, and possession-wise, 63% possession compared to 37% possession that the Dynamo has. And that hopefully with LAFC, of course, winning this game, they can maybe start a bit of a winning streak. I mean, do have relatively a very easy schedule down. Well, I wouldn't say easy when they have to go to Minnesota in the next game, and that, of course, is a road game where they have to go to Allianz Field and hope to maybe get some revenge of what happened a couple of weeks ago where they lost to Minnesota at home. But then they have the Rapids on the final day of the season, and let's also not forget they're going to get a first round bye in terms of this playoff. So yeah, hopefully, with them winning these next couple of games, they will head into that bye with a lot of confidence, and that I still think that they are clearly the favorites in terms of winning MLS Cup, and that the only thing that will stop LAFC of winning MLS Cup is that they just basically decided to look like what they were in that last couple of games where they were kind of a little bit lost, and that they went in a little bit of a slump. But as for the Dynamo, yeah, their season is over. I mean, with this loss, they officially eliminated from the playoffs. And yes, I will be doing a moving forward series in terms of the Houston Dynamo and talk about what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward from this next season. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Galaxy. So the Galaxy did something that not many team is able to do to RSL when they face them on the road, which is win a game on the road against RSL. So they won 2-1 in this game, and you know how a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago and right near the end of the transfer deadline where they of course got that Pavone deal done literally at the last minute, and in some way they kind of did a little bit of a loophole to get him just on a TAM contract, and that LA avoids having to sell one of their DP in order to culminate Pavone as a designated player, and that a lot of people also said that he was going to be a difference maker in this team, and boy did he prove that in this game, as I really think that this was probably the best game that he has played in a Galaxy uniform. But in the first half, RSL had a ton of chances to potentially get the opening goal, but they couldn't do that, so this game stayed at 0-0. And then in the second half, that's when the Galaxy woke up, and that's when the Pavone show began. It all started in the 50th minute when Pavone scores from Zlatan to give the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. Then Zlatan returns the favor by scoring a goal in the 80th minute from Pavone to give the Galaxy a 2-0 lead. Now, RSL did get one back late in the game, and it was Nadim Onahu who scores from Salcedos to give them maybe a little bit of hope in these last couple of minutes in this game, but the Galaxy was able to hold on into this game, and they got a massive 3 points to basically move to third place in the Western Conference, and also most importantly, they have now officially clinched their playoff position. So there's no more worry about a potential collapse of the Galaxy, because now they're going to be in the playoffs, and for the first time ever, we are going to see Zlatan in the playoffs, and it will be very interesting to see what he does in the playoffs. But, like I said, they of course have clinched their playoff spot with this win. In terms of shots in this game, 11 shots compared to 18 that RSL had, 3 shots on goal compared to 5 that RSL had, 7 shots off target compared to 10 that RSL has. Possession-wise, 46% possession compared to 54% possession that RSL had. And, also block shots. RSL had 3 block shots compared to 1 that the Galaxy has. And that, for RSL, it's definitely a disappointing loss at home, and now they definitely hope that in these next couple of games, I think RSL is pretty close in terms of clinching a playoff spot, but even if they of course clinch their playoff spot, I have a feeling most likely they are not going to be able to host a home fixture, because they might be a team that end up maybe in that 5th or even that 6th spot in terms of how the Western Conference is going to look at the end of the year. I mean, if they were going to try to get home field advantage heading into the playoffs, this was a game that they just had to win. And because they didn't win this one, their chances of potentially hosting a home playoff game is definitely dwindling. And the reason why I want to emphasize why RSL want to have a home playoff game is because RSL have definitely been much better when they're playing at home than they are on the road. And even though this game kind of didn't show that, they've just been so good at home this season. But on the road, it's just kind of been a different story. And that if they have to play road games in their first round of their playoffs, I do have a fear that maybe they're going to have an early playoff exit because they have to go on the road, which is definitely kind of the biggest weakness for them so far this season. But moving on in terms of the next game, and speaking of another team that got their playoff position clinched, is Minnesota. So the Loons, they did it. They have now clinched their spot in the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, and they did it by winning against, I would say, maybe their most hated rival, Sporting KC. I mean, they said that this is the Dylan Walpers derby, but, I don't know if it's actually a derby or a rivalry game, but they, of course, won in this one, most importantly. And not only they, of course, won this game to clinch their playoff position, with this loss, SKC is officially eliminated from playoff position, and that their 8-year streak of making the playoffs comes to an end after this elimination. And that I think it's safe to say that we can officially say that SKC basically fell in the same trap as TFC last season, where a team went deep into a CCL run and things were looking great at the beginning of the season, and then it basically fell apart because of numerous injuries, and by the time when they have to play catch up, they weren't able to do that, and they just dropped too many crucial results. Now, to be fair, they got off to a great start in the 7th minute when Barrev scores from Johnny Russell to give them a 1-0 lead, and then they had multiple chances of potentially getting that second goal. And I believe they also hit the bar like at least 3 or 4 times this game, so they were kind of unlucky in terms of that department. But yeah, I mean, SKC could have easily been 1 or 2-0 up at halftime, and they maybe even could have been 3 or 4-0 up in the second half, because they also had multiple chances of getting the second goal. And that, Minnesota, I was really concerned of the fact that, while they of course won this game, they definitely did not play well whatsoever, and that, if it was maybe against a better team that can, of course, able to put the ball into the back of the net, Minnesota could definitely be in trouble if they have the performance like they did in this game against SKC. But, I don't want to talk about the negative about Minnesota because, I think it's Minnesota fans definitely don't want to hear some negative in terms of me doing a review, especially when they, of course, won this game and clinched their playoff spot. But their road to recover this game all started in the 70th minute when Ozzy Alonso, who I believe this is now his second goals that he has scored this season, which is as many goals as he has scored when he was with the Sounders. I mean, I don't even remember, has he ever even scored for the Seattle Sounders, since he's never known to be kind of a goal scorer. But he scored here from Denladi and Gregish to tie the game up at 1 apiece before Hassani Dotson scored a late winner in the 90th minute from, guess who? Ozzy Alonso getting a assist. I mean, if you think Ozzy Alonso scoring a goal is rare, how about Ozzy Alonso getting a goal and assist in the same game? Like, I don't think that is something that I don't think we might ever see again, but that's what he did here in this game. And that, this was a game where he basically was just a complete player, where not only he did a great job on the defensive end, but he also contributed in terms of the attacking end and also scoring those 2 goals. Or not scoring those 2 goals, but getting a goal and an assist in this game. But yeah, Minnesota, of course, with a come-from-behind 2-1 victory in this game. And in terms of shots in this game, 16 shots compared to 23 that SKC had. 8 shots on goal compared to 7 that Minnesota has. 5 shots that was blocked compared to none that Minnesota has. 10 shots off target compared to 9 that Minnesota has. And possession-wise, dead even at 50% possession. And again, congratulations to Minnesota clinching their playoff spot for the first time in club history. And now it's going to be interesting to see, are they going to be able to clinch for the first time ever in club history to have a home game at Allianz Field. And I'll tell you what, if there is going to be a home game at Allianz Field, you can guarantee that I will definitely want to attend this. Like, I know it's going to cost me a lot to attend attend a Minnesota United home playoff game, especially, since this is going to be their first ever playoff game. But I imagine that it's going to be just a rocketing atmosphere, and that it's just going to be something that is going to be very special, and that, I really want to attend a game where I'm just going to feel a game that has some very special moment, and that, this could definitely be the case for Minnesota if they, of course, can win their last two home game, which is not going to be easy because they got LAFC next at home in their weekend matchup before have to play against the Sounders on the road on the final day of the season. But one thing at least they know is that they're going to be in the playoffs for the first time in their club history, and I think in the beginning of the season, there's no doubt that getting into the playoffs was the biggest goal for this team, and they have successfully achieved it by winning against SKC in this game. But moving on into now the final game of this week, and I know this has been a very long video because I've been kind of spending a lot of time talking about these first two games, but I'll try to make it short by talk about this one between NYCFC versus Atlanta, where NYCFC basically not only sent a message by beating Atlanta 4-1 in this game, but there is no doubt that they are going to be the team to beat in the East. Now, I know Atlanta did not have Joseph Martinez in this game, and I'm not quite sure if Joseph Martinez play in this game, it made any difference because, boy, Atlanta looked absolutely awful in this game, and especially on the defensive end. And also, Alexandre Matrita, remember how NYCFC paid him $9.5 million in the beginning of the season? Well, in this game, he basically proved why he's worth $9.5 million that NYCFC pay him in the beginning of the season. Because in the 14th minute, he scored the first goal of the game from Tajuri Shradi to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. Then he got his brace 9 minutes later when he scores for Morales to make it 2-0 in favor of NYCFC, before getting his first half hat trick in the 34th minute to give NYCFC a 3-0 lead. Now, NYCFC could have made it 4-0 when they, of course, won a penalty, and Maxi Morales, of course, steps up for the penalty, and this is something that as much as I am just blown away of what NYCFC have done so far this season, and that it seemed like Domain Turan has just pushed all the right buttons in terms of getting this team being one of the best team in MLS. One thing that I still don't understand is why is Maxi Morales still taking penalties? Like, I think he has now missed more penalty than he actually made so far in this time of him at NYCFC, and when you're basically a penalty kick taker and you miss more penalty than you taken, you shouldn't be taking penalties. And this was another classic example of it where he basically missed a penalty that could have given NYCFC chance to get a 4-0 lead heading into halftime. And this was not just any miss. He basically didn't even hit the target in terms of this penalty kick. I mean, this was right up there to probably the worst penalty that I've seen so far this season. And I think still the worst penalty this season has to be that Ali Adnan failed Panenka earlier this season. But there's no doubt that this is going to be one of the top 5, if not the top 3, in terms of the worst penalty that I have seen so far this season. Because not only he didn't even able to make Guzan to potentially save that shot, but he didn't even put it on target. And when you don't put your shot on target on a penalty, yeah, that is an embarrassing kind of penalty shot. But the good news for NYCFC is that that's only kind of the negative side in this game of what overall was a dominant effort. Atlanta did get one back in the 53rd minute when Pity Martinez was able to put away his penalty, but I just didn't feel like Atlanta was going to come back from this game because NYCFC absolutely dominate and basically control this game. And eventually they put the cherry on the top in the 87th minute when Aber, who just returned from his injury that he suffered a couple of weeks ago, comes off the bench and scores the 4th goal in this game. And at the end of the day, NYCFC win 4-1 against Atlanta. And in terms of shots in this game, 16 shots compared to 10 that Atlanta has, 8 shots on goal compared to 4 that Atlanta has, 5 shots off target compared to 6 that Atlanta has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to none that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Atlanta has in this game. And that, what a win this was for NYCFC. And that although I know they technically haven't clinched their top spot in terms of getting a playoff first round bye in the Eastern Conference, there is no doubt that if they, of course, can win or tie their next game, they are going to clinch that top spot in the Eastern Conference. And as for Atlanta, as much as I want to say that they dearly miss Joseph in this game, even if Joseph Martinez play in this game, I don't know if it actually does make a difference, because this Atlanta defense in this game was just god awful. Like, some of the defensive mistake that I saw in this game was just some schoolboy kind of error mistake. And for Atlanta team that for majority of this season have shown that they can be a very good defensive organized team, this was definitely not one of those example in this game. And that, until if they don't figure out this kind of defensive error that they of course are having when they are playing on the road, which, by the way, on the road this season for Atlanta has been absolutely dreadful. Like, it seemed like every time when they go on the road, especially against tough opponent, you will guarantee that Atlanta would lose that game, which is kind of shocking, because that's completely the opposite of what happened last year, when it seemed like it doesn't matter if they play home or away, they will always find a way to get a victory. But yeah, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I do apologize the fact that this was such a long video, because I have to go very in-depth in terms of some of the controversy call that happened earlier in this match week, or in the latter part of this match week, that is, because I did this review backwards. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.